I was feeling a bit off. Then one day at work, I went to the bathroom, and the burning sensation made me scream in agony. It felt like a scorching iron had been thrust right into my urinary tract. I quickly left work and headed straight to our doctor. After a thorough examination and multiple tests, he called me into his office. "I have to ask you some very personal questions, John. They're difficult, but it's required by law." I was momentarily puzzled. What did the law have to do with my pain? "Well, I don't know how to break this to you, John, but you have an STD. It's treatable and will go away. But it is an STD." His words hit me like a freight train. I tried to process what he was saying, but the term STD struck me hard. How could this be? I'd never been unfaithful to my wife, never even touched another woman, yet I had an STD. "John, are you all right?" "Damn it, no, I'm not okay, doctor." "How could I get an STD? I've never cheated on my wife or been with anyone else. How did this happen?" "Well, John, some of the questions I'm going to ask relate to this. Who have been your recent sexual partners?" "My wife. She's the only one." I felt sick to my stomach, knots forming inside me. He slid a small trash can from the side of his desk, and I threw up. It took me a while to regain my composure. My wife must have given me this STD. The shock of this realization was overwhelming. The doctor had been our family physician for many years. He delivered all 3 of our children. His look was one of deep sympathy. "I'm sorry, John. Usually I would think you might have been with someone else during your frequent trips. I'm sorry. So what do I do now, doctor? Clearly my wife has been unfaithful or hasn't told me something important. What's the next step? You need to know who her partners were. You have to be completely honest with me, John. If you've been with someone else..." "I told you, doctor. I have never ever been with another woman or man for that matter." "Then we must assume your wife gave this to you. You need to inform her and bring her in for treatment. I hope it hasn't progressed to a point where it's no longer treatable for her. She will need to tell us who she's been with, and if it's been more than one person, all of them. Why do you need to know that? We'll need to notify everyone she's been with sexually and let them know. They have a right to know. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention CDC will require it too. They'll be notified, and I'm sure an investigator will check everything out as well." I sat there, realizing that my proper and decent wife had cheated on me and given me an STD. What would happen to my marriage when I got home? What would she say? Why did she stray beyond our loving marriage? We had been married for 12 years, and our children were just reaching the age where I imagined we could spend more time together alone. Obviously, she had other plans. I left the doctor's office after our conversation. He was concerned I might do something rash, but honestly, my mind was so numb I couldn't act on anything at that moment. I came home early for the first time in months. When I arrived, I saw her car was gone, and I had the house to myself. The kids were still in school, and would be for another 2 hours. I sat there, unable to drink what I so desired because of the antibiotics I was taking. I sat in my living room chair, numb and silent. I replayed the last few years with my wife, wondering when and how she decided to break our vows and be with someone else. I wondered if I wasn't good enough for her. My mind was in turmoil. I heard the front door open and her laughter as she entered, laughter that ceased when she saw me sitting in the chair. Her boyfriend was right behind her, looking like a kid caught with his hand in the cookie jar. "Oh, John, what are you doing home in the middle of the day? Tell your lover he gave you an STD." I started to get angry. Was she bold enough to have sex with this jerk in my bed? Was she so heartless to give her love to another in the house I paid for? I was ready to explode. "John, what are you talking about?" I erupted. "You!" I spat out the words, so angry I could barely contain myself. "You gave me an STD, and I had to go to the doctor today because my penis was burning. This pig gave you an STD. You both need to go to the doctor now. How dare you call me? That's exactly what you are, a street whore. You, my supposedly faithful wife, cheated on me with this jerk, and he gave you an STD, which I could only get from you since I, your lawful and true husband and lover, never cheated on you. Get out and go to the doctor and get checked." She burst into tears, realizing she was caught, and now she also had an STD to deal with. I just collapsed back into my chair, having risen to yell at my cheating wife. Her lover turned and almost ran to his car. He was definitely heading to the doctor. He didn't know about the STD, and I began to wonder if he indeed gave it to her. Maybe she got it somewhere else. "I'm so sorry, John. I didn't know. It just happened, and I told you, get out and go to the doctor." "I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear your excuses that it's my fault or that you cheated because of some stupid mistake. Just get out and tell the doctor who you've slept with. He needs to know. Suddenly I felt so tired. I just wanted to lie down and sleep. I wanted to be alone and sleep. Jenny stood there, still crying. But seeing I wasn't going to say anything else, finally turned and left. A little later, I heard our car start and drive away. I sat there, my life in ruins. In one morning and one bad dark day, I went from a happily married man to a gloomy and sad man who had been betrayed. My wife betrayed me. She got an STD, 12 years down the drain. I needed that drink, and despite what the doctor said, I made myself a double scotch. It didn't last long. Neither did the next 4. Later, sitting on our bed, I heard the kids come home. Jenny hadn't returned. They came in, seeing me in a suit, sitting on the bed, half drunk, and started asking questions. Dad, why are you home so early? Are you okay? You've been drinking. Emily was concerned. Dad, what happened? Max was shocked to see me like this. I looked at my 3 children, 2 girls and a boy. Emily, Max, and little Katie. Emily, almost 14, looked at me like she knew something and was afraid to tell me. Max was truly surprised why Dad was home and drunk. Katie, 7, was worried I might be sick in front of them. Don't puke, Dad. I'll get you a bowl or something. Just don't puke in front of me. I won't, Katie. Look, kids, I caught something your mom might have given me. She's at the doctor getting checked out. She'll be home soon. You just go do your homework and stuff. Everything will work out. Max and Katie left the bedroom, relieved to be out of the situation. They had never seen me drunk before. At that moment, I felt ashamed of myself too. I loved my children with all my heart and tried to teach them right from wrong, and that honesty is the most important thing in life. At that moment, I noticed Emily was still with me. She sat on the bed a little away from me, but still there. I looked at her, and it took a moment to realize she had been crying. Emily, honey, what's wrong? It's not a big deal, just a little infection. I'm sure everything will be fine. No, Dad, it won't. I should have told you last month. I should have told you. She spoke so quietly it took me a moment to understand her words. What should you have told me, honey? About Mom and some man. I saw them together. I should have been in school, but it was canceled because of the power outage. I came home at 9 a.m., not long after Katie left for her school. I came in quietly because I wanted some time to myself before Mom made me do some chores. I heard her in the guest bedroom making some sounds. I peeked in and she was there. He was on her. She was moaning. Oh God, I'm so sorry, Dad. She cried and sobbed even more. I pulled her close and hugged her, stroking her hair. She had caught her mother having sex with some man in the guest bedroom. For some strange reason, I felt a bit relieved. Perhaps because I thought she could have cheated with some man in our marital bed. Now it seemed she hadn't done that, at least for the moment. Emily cried for quite a while, then got up at my request and went to the bathroom to freshen up. I sat there wondering what would happen next. What am I going to do next? I have only loved one woman in my life, Jenny, and she betrayed me. What should I do now? Get a divorce? Leave town? Throw her out? What? I was empty and lonely inside. My best friend and trusted partner in life had stabbed me in the back, leaving me vulnerable and in pain. Emily had prepared dinner for everyone. I wasn't hungry, but I sat with them while they ate. Max asked a lot of questions, but Emily looked at him in a way that silenced him. I was not ready for any questions at that moment. The kids left after the meal as soon as they heard my car pull into the driveway. Emily stayed and, as if reading my mind, reassured me about them. Dad, if it comes to a divorce between you and Mom, we want to be with you. She's changed a lot. Thank you, Emily. I'm not sure what's going to happen now, but I'll remember what you said to me. Jenny walked into a very quiet house. John, are you in here? In the kitchen. She came in with a look of sadness and guilt that I had never seen on her face before. As she sat down across from me at the table, I saw tears streaming down her face. She was playing with her car keys, turning them over in her hands. So what did the doctor find out? I have an STD. I gave it to the one love of my life. Oh God, I am so sorry, John. I never wanted to hurt you. It's just, I didn't want to hear her lies, her excuses. I just didn't want to see or hear her at all then. I wanted to beat her unconscious or, perhaps even in my state, do something more cruel. To prevent myself from doing any of that, I had to walk away from her. Look, It's too late to find another place for the night. You can sleep in the guest bedroom. Pack your things, all your things, and move them there. I need to go to work tomorrow and arrange for a leave. Well, talk later. I got up and left the room. I went to my office, my sanctuary. Sitting at my desk, I broke down and cried like a child. I heard Jenny moving things around, and soon it was quiet. I got up and went to the bedroom, seeing the empty closet, empty shelves, and open drawers. Empty, like I felt. Empty. My life was empty, except for my children. I had nothing of value left. Sleep was impossible, and in the morning, when I got up, I felt terrible. I showered and went to work. I was there before anyone else, and in the silence of the morning, I made a decision. One that would impact my entire family for a long time. After making a few phone calls, I arranged everything. Later, I managed to get 3 weeks off and left work. At home, Jenny was sitting in the living room alone. I could see she had been crying, red eyes and used tissues on the table. I stood there at the front door, looking at her. All these years of our life together flashed through my mind. I wondered what had happened to us. John, what do we do now? I know you must hate me. Lately, I haven't been a good wife. I never let them take me in our bed. I mean, we never. Them? As in more than one? Jenny, you couldn't just betray me with one man. You had to do it with many? God, I thought I knew and understood you all this time. Did you ever love me even once? Oh, I always loved you, John. The others. I can't explain why. I just felt lonely. I felt ugly, old. Mark was the first. He made me feel alive and beautiful. He treated me like a queen. Then he took me wherever he wanted. Not that I complained. And then I realized there were other men, and God help me, the wilder it got, the more I liked it. Up to this point, knowing what I've done to you and the kids. Oh, God. Her head in her hands, her shoulders shaking with sobs. I stood there, still in the hallway. So many mixed emotions swirled inside me. Pity, anger, fear, and even love. Yes, I still loved her, despite her breaking my heart. It all happened so fast. I had no choice but to love her, but I was sure that would soon change. Look, what you did is probably the worst thing you could have done. Not just to me, not just to the kids, but to yourself too. I don't understand why, and honestly, I don't want the details either. You betrayed me with more than one man. You got a sexually transmitted disease. Now you're sorry, but I can't help but think you're sorry you got caught or got sick, not for betraying me. Just because I caught you. That's not true. I never wanted to hurt you, John. I always loved you more than anyone else. Always. So much that you found other men to fill the void that I, apparently, couldn't fill for you, right, Jenny? Don't be cruel, John. I know I really messed up our relationship. I know you have every reason to hate me. Is there any hope for us now? I still love you so much, I really do. I can't live without you, John. I can't. You love me, really? Do you think I'm a fool or something? Take your love and shove it where you like it. But don't wave your love in front of me. Your so-called love gave me an STD. I don't know what kind of love makes a wife share her love with every Tom, Dick, and Harry. Are there also Tyrone and Jamal? I loved you too up until this point. I'm sure my love is dead, and by tomorrow morning I'll flush it down the toilet, and no, I don't think I can ever forgive you for this. After the divorce, you can get all your love from anyone, and I pray you soon become the town bicycle. Oh, John, please don't say that. We can work through this. I'll never cheat on you again. I'll do whatever it takes to stay with you. Anything. Anything, really? Then unscrew yourself. Oh, wait. You're not a light bulb. You can't unscrew. This will never work between us. I don't give second chances. Besides, you already had your chance, and you blew it. How can I be sure you'll never cheat on me again? I never would have believed you'd do it in the first place, Jenny. But you did. I could never trust you, at least not for a long time. What kind of life would that be for you or me? I'd always be checking up on you, making sure you're not out with some other guy. I'd always be doubting you and your fidelity. I don't see how we can get past this, Jenny. I thought about it last night and today. For now, you can stay here in the guest bedroom, but if I were you, I'd start looking for another place to live soon. No, please, John. One more chance is all I'm asking for. Please. She cried bitterly, her shoulders shaking as she begged me for another chance. But I felt nothing for her. Absolutely nothing. Go to hell. I gave you 12 years, the best 12 years of my life, and you threw it all away for some pleasure that apparently I couldn't give you. Some fun you couldn't get from me. You ruined everything, Jenny, not me. You did this to us. So either unscrew yourself or start packing. Let me explain. If I tell you that it all happened because I don't want to hear your story about how you cheated on me, you'll somehow try to shift the blame to me, and I won't accept it. I was there for you, loving you completely. I never left you. I traveled a bit for work, but I always tried to be with you as much as I could. You just couldn't live with it, I guess. Other men were what you wanted. Now you can have them. I hope they give you satisfaction, Jenny. You'll never get it from me again. We lived together for another 2 months. During that time, I learned that it all started because Jenny got bored with our sex life. One day, while I was on a business trip, she went to a bar with one of her single friends. There, they were picked up by some guys, and before she knew what was happening, she woke up naked in bed with one of them. Jenny blamed the alcohol and me. The alcohol for loosening her up and making her not think straight, and me for being away too often. In reality, I was almost never on business trips for more than a night, maybe once a month. We had a terrible fight over her confession, and things got even worse. One night she came home from a date and took him to the guest bedroom where she was sleeping. I came home and found Emily sitting on the porch with her brother and sister in her arms. They were crying. "What happened, kids? Mom brought home a boyfriend, Dad. They were so loud we had to come out here." I went inside and kicked the bedroom door open. The guy between her legs was momentarily confused. Jenny looked me in the eye and then started crying. The guy finally got up and started threatening me. I grabbed him by the neck and kneed him in the groin. He doubled over in pain, and I pulled him forward, shoving him to the floor. I landed a few more blows to his groin. As he tried to get up, I punched him in the face. "When you get up, get dressed, and get out of my house. If you're not gone within 2 minutes of getting up, you'll regret it." Jenny started to speak to me. "John, it's not what you think. Oh, Jenny, my poor, innocent, loving, faithful wife. I'm not thinking. Since I'm not thinking much, why don't you start packing? If I start thinking, I'll be thinking about how to dispose of a body. You have 30 minutes, and then you need to be out of here. It's my fault for letting you stay here. I should have kicked you out that day. Our kids were on the porch, for God's sake. You were too loud for them. You understand that, right? Now your kids know what you are. Start packing and get out." A few minutes later, she came out of the room with a suitcase. The kids and I were still on the porch. She came out and tried to take the car, but saw all 4 tires were flat. "Call a taxi." "This car won't drive," I said with a smile. "Wonder who did that." She looked at me with tears in her eyes. Emily walked up to her, and Jenny thought she wanted to hug her. I was shocked when Emily slapped her across the face, and Jenny fell to the ground. You're worse than a street whore. You're dead to me." Then she spat in her face. "If you think I stopped my daughter, told her this was her mother and she did nothing wrong, you are mistaken. I just said, 'Good job. That's my girl. Now throw her suitcase out on the street.' Emily did just that. And all of Jenny's things ended up on the street. We went inside, leaving Jenny to deal with the situation on her own. Our divorce was swift, and Jenny didn't put up a fight. I got the house and the kids. She got a portion of my pension, not much, and half of our savings, and her car. Other than that, it was pretty straightforward. My lawyer said I could have gotten more, but we had been together for at least 10 years when she was faithful to me, I guess. And I felt the need to do something good for her for that. The kids, well, they missed their mother, but they were also angry at her for betraying me. Emily had seen her, but later I learned that Max and Katie had also seen her with other men at various times. It was tough for us for a while. Jenny was allowed to see them a few days a month and a week in the summer. They never wanted to go with her. Emily always treated Jenny like. I finally got all 3 to see a psychologist, and soon they started to feel better. Not completely healed, but coping better. We began building a new life as a single-parent family. Jenny seemed to fade over time, still seeing the kids, but never me. I liked it that way because every time she came to mind, the pain of her betrayal resurfaced. 3 years passed rather quickly. Emily was now 17 and had become quite a beauty. Max had matured and was growing up fast. Katie, though still young, was already showing signs of becoming as beautiful as her older sister. Emily started talking to me about dating other women. "Dad, you should find someone to date." The next day I began looking at the women in our office building. I had no idea how to start dating again. I hadn't even flirted in many years. Now suddenly I realized I had to do something to fix this. Emily was right. I wanted someone to fill the void in my life, not just sexually, but also for companionship, love, togetherness. I missed that. Here I was, almost 40, and I had to start dating again after so many years. Where to start? What to do? I was confused. Part of the reason I hadn't tried dating was the extreme fear of rejection. I might have been confident in my business relationships, but Jenny had knocked the wind out of my sails in my personal ones. I felt insecure and quite shy. One day I overheard a conversation between two women by the copier. Oh, Dan is so sexy but too young. Ted, well, he's a player. This one guy, Jim, is so sexy but damn, so cold too. Like ice. I'd love to get to know him, but he has no time for women. His ex really ruined a good man. I know what you mean. I wish my husband were at least half as good as Jim. He's so fit and strong and handsome. God, he makes me wish I were single again. I felt awkward but also proud. I never thought of myself as attractive, but apparently, some women did. I slipped out of the hallway to my office, hoping they'd never find out I had overheard them. Returning home that night, I sat in my office and just drank. I hadn't done that in a long time. Emily returned from her date later and came in to talk. Dad, I found the perfect woman for you. She's smart, sexy, beautiful, and best of all, she's rich. Emily, I can find my own dates. Yeah, right. Listen, Dad, I could set up a meeting for you two. Have dinner together. No strings attached. Just dinner and a meeting. Please say you'll think about it. Well, rich or not, you need to know that money isn't part of what I'm looking for, Emily. I know that, Dad, but it wouldn't hurt to have a sexy, beautiful woman who also happens to be rich, Tell you what, if I don't find a date within a month, I'll let you set it up for me. But just dinner and a meeting, okay? A whole month? Oh, God. How about a week? You haven't done anything at all. Emily, a month or nothing at all. Fine, fine. But I'm marking it on the calendar, and on that day, I'll set you up. Trust me, Dad. You'll like her. I adore her. I was curious, but also anxious. I wasn't sure I wanted my daughter to play matchmaker at all. I also wanted to see and know who she was talking about. How did she meet this woman to have any feelings about her at all? The following week, I tried to ask one of the women I had overheard by the copier, the same one, if you're curious. I didn't want to break up anyone's marriage, especially after what had happened to mine. My attempt was poorly thought out in my head, and I was turned down. I really had no chance. It probably seemed weird to her when I asked her to dinner. She looked at me and backed away. I retreated, probably looking strange. It was a pathetic failure on my part. I almost ran back to my office, hoping she wouldn't accuse me of sexual harassment or something like that. It started as a pleasant business conversation that I ruined by simply expressing my desire to ask her to dinner. So the contract needs to be signed and notarized, right? Yes, Amy. 2 copies as well. Then we send one to the first party and keep a copy for our own use. Say, would you like to have dinner with me tonight? 2 copies? What did you say? Did you say dinner tonight? She stood up straight and took a step back, a look on her face I couldn't decipher. Yes, if you're free, I'd like to… Well, this is rather short notice, Jim. I'm not sure that. She was looking left and right, but not at me. I could see she was also upset. What had I done? Oh, it's all right. I understand. I need to run. See you later, Amy. I turned and fled like a chicken. I saw the hesitation on her face when she realized I had asked her out. I hadn't considered the age difference between us either. Here I was, 39, and she may be 30. I realized I had screwed up. The rest of the day was also awkward. I just stumbled around and eventually avoided her altogether. That night, I sat at home, depressed and silent. Emily and Max tried to cheer me up, but they didn't know what had made me so unhappy. Katie came in and sat beside me for a while. She had a way of talking to me that made me relax. For such a young lady, she had the wisdom of ages. Soon she got the story of my failed attempt with Amy out of me. Laughing, Katie and Emily told me I probably misunderstood everything. Dad, you can't just expect a girl to drop everything to go on a date with you, especially if you've never shown any interest in her before. Maybe she had other plans she couldn't cancel. Maybe she had a hair appointment or something. She wasn't rejecting you, she was just surprised. For such a young lady, you seem to know a lot about grown-up stuff, Katie. Oh, come on, Dad. I'm a girl, too. I'm old enough to date, and I read a lot. It's not rocket science. Yeah, well, maybe for me, it is rocket science, Katie. I haven't dated anyone in ages. The last time I dated anyone, the music and fashion were entirely different. Emily laughed and started teasing me. Oh yeah, Dad. It was disco back then, right? Disco and platform shoes. Do you still have your polyester leisure suit? Emily, you should know better. Hey, Dad. How did you walk in those high-heeled shoes? Max was smiling, and I could see he was also thinking too much. Did you fall a lot? Max, you better stay out of this. Emily laughed at her witty remark. They all laughed at me. They knew I hated disco with a passion. They also knew I never wore anything but Levi's and boots in those days, too. I laughed with them, but leaned in and started tickling them. Soon it turned into a pillow fight with couch cushions. It was a fun night for all of us, the best part being that they distracted me from my awful failure that day. The next day at work was tough. Amy seemed to avoid me, and I felt like I had ruined a good working relationship with her. We'd always been businesslike with each other, and now I had intruded into her personal space. I kept to myself and worked on the paperwork that had piled up on my desk. The whole week went by with me mostly staying in my office. The next 2 weeks, I had to travel, something I rarely did anymore. As I packed 2 nights before leaving, the kids all came to talk. I always liked to pack ahead of time when going on such trips to ensure I had everything I needed during my absence. We talked about this and that when Max suddenly blurted out, "Hey, Dad, while you're in Austin, you should find yourself a prostitute." His sisters looked at him with wide eyes, then started arguing. I stopped them and sat down. I was a little upset about having to leave. Though I knew Emily and Max were old enough and responsible enough to handle things without me. I trusted them, and they never let me down. I would never go to a prostitute, Max. Maybe I need it, but I'm not one to pay for such love. Besides, having had an STD once in my life, I don't want to risk it again. Oh, I hadn't thought of that. I just thought you might get some relief and not have to work so hard at it. Well, thanks for the idea, but no, thanks. Dad, did you ask Amy out again? No, Emily, I didn't. I've been kind of avoiding her. Now it's awkward for both of us. Maybe I ruined a good business relationship by doing what I did, and now I don't know how to fix it. Don't worry about fixing it, Dad. Just move on. She probably thinks you changed your mind and don't want her anymore. That will drive her crazy. Just be yourself. Everything will work out. When you get back, it'll be a month. I won't be gone that long, Emily, just 2 weeks. Yeah, but it'll be a month from the day you come back. Remember, you promised I could set you up on a date with her when you got back. I'd forgotten that she wanted to set me up on a date with the rich girl. I shook my head and then admitted, "Okay, I promised you, so I'll keep my word. Just don't expect much, okay? It probably won't go very well, you know. You'll love her, Dad. You have what the other men she's dated don't. She's looking too. I think you two will hit it off. Emily, I'm curious why you're so determined to set me up with this woman. Who is she to you, honey? Why are you so insistent that we meet?" "Oh, Dad, I just care about you. I want you to be happy, and I think she can make that happen. I like her a lot. I've noticed. What is it about her that I should know? Well, she's smart. She has her own business, and she's successful at it. She's built like, well, she's very beautiful. She works out a lot too. I know you'll like her, Dad. You might even love her. It sounds like you've made up your mind. Sometimes a girl has to take charge. Since Mom left, you've been so sad. I've been worried about you all the time. I was afraid. I was afraid you... What? Leave you kids? Oh, you were afraid I might kill myself, right? I should have realized. I forgot about Rebecca's father. Rebecca was one of Emily's best friends. One day, Rebecca came home to see an ambulance and police officers. Her father had committed suicide over his wife's infidelity. Rebecca's father had caught her mother with another man in their marital bed, and things almost turned violent. This happened over a year ago, before my wife gave me her gift. They stayed married, but it was clear they were miserable. Then one day it all became too much for him. He called in sick to work, and after everyone left, he undressed, laid on his bed, and took a lot of pills. He left behind 2 kids and a wife. The wife didn't seem upset by it either. In the end, it was hardest on the kids. What a legacy to leave them. They moved away after the funeral, and Emily soon lost touch with Rebecca. "Dad, I love you and want you to be happy. I think a good woman can help you be happy again like you used to be. Okay, Emily, set me up on a date with... What's her name?" Well, her name is Susan. She's very nice, about 58 tall, and as I said, very well built. She's talked to me about you. I think she's interested in meeting you. I think you'll like her, Dad. I'm sure. Susan, huh? All right, set up the date. We'll see how good you are at judging people. Emily smiled and hugged me as she ran out of the room. A few minutes later, I heard her talking on the phone, laughing and chatting with someone I assumed was Susan. After that, the house was quiet. The kids did their homework, and I just relaxed in my office. The next day at work, Amy came into my office, closing the door behind her. Jim, we need to talk and clear the air. We've been avoiding each other since you asked me out. This needs to be fixed immediately. It's starting to hurt our working relationship. I felt ashamed, but knew she was right. I had been avoiding her all this time. Talking about my failed attempt at asking her out was not something I had the strength for. I had embarrassed myself, and then let it become an even bigger issue instead of trying to fix it with Amy. Look, I know I shocked you when I asked you out. I never gave you a chance. You didn't even know I was interested. Then I acted like a fool and avoided you. I was afraid you'd accuse me of sexual harassment at work. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have asked you out, especially not like that. The only thing I can say in my defense is that I'm lonely and haven't dated in over 15 years. I guess I'm trying to say that. I was digging myself deeper and deeper. Amy just sat there with a look I couldn't decipher, and it made me more nervous. I was usually straightforward with everyone I worked with or talked to, and now I felt like a little boy trying to wiggle out of trouble. Jim, hold on. When you asked me out, I was stunned. You never even acted like you were interested in me. Then you got flustered and left me standing there, not knowing what to say or do to get through it. Since then, you've been avoiding me. Of course, I avoided you too, to be honest, because I thought you were playing some game. You're a very handsome and attractive man. I admire you and the work you do. I'd be honored to go on a date with you. I wanted you to know that. I was taken aback. Her words felt like a lifeline. Really? I thought I had messed up everything. No, Jim. You just caught me off guard. But now that we've cleared the air, let's move past this awkwardness. How about we start fresh? I felt a huge weight lift off my shoulders. That sounds perfect. Thank you, Amy. Let's start over. With a smile, she left my office, and I felt a renewed sense of hope. Maybe things could work out after all. Laughing a throaty laugh that sent shivers down my spine, she placed her hands on mine. Oh yes, you fool, I would. But the day you asked me, I was shocked. As I said, you never showed any interest in me. It was like a bolt from the blue mid-conversation about a contract, then suddenly a date invite. I should have started with some small talk first, not a direct question, don't you think? Sorry. I never thought. I thought. I was nervous. You're so beautiful and… Nervous? You? Come on, tell me more about the beautiful part. I like it when a man calls me beautiful. I finally started to relax. I felt the pressure ease and the cloud hanging over my head dissipate. She would go on a date with me. This news made me feel warm and happy inside. Then I remembered that my daughter had set me up on a date with… What was her name? Susan. Oh, darn. The trip to Austin turned out to be long. The meetings were tense, and the client tried to push me to offer things that were simply impossible. Until the last day, I was sure I had lost this contract. Then suddenly, out of the blue, the client offered me the full contract, and even a bit more. I guess they were somehow testing me, or maybe the company I worked for. Either way, I hit the jackpot with this contract, and I was thrilled. When I got home, I threw my bags on the couch, and the kids rushed to kiss and hug me. Things must have gone really well, Dad. Did you get a hooker? Max, I told you I wouldn't do anything like that, didn't I? Well, I thought you were just covering your ass. Sorry. We need to have a talk sometime. You seem to have some strange ideas about things lately. Max ran out of the room, avoiding setting a time for our talk. He was a teenage boy with raging hormones and probably didn't want to sit and listen to Dad talk about embarrassing things. I felt some relief because I didn't want to talk about it either. The first sex talk we had many years ago was tough enough for both of us. Dad, everything's set. The day after tomorrow at the yacht club across town. Confused, I just stared at Emily, not understanding what she was talking about. Then it hit me. My date. Damn. Dad, are you losing your memory too? Just caught me off guard, Emily, that's all. Well, she wanted to meet you on her turf for the first date. You need to wear something nice. I'll help you pick something out. Emily, what if we don't get along? Will you be okay with that? What? Oh, yes, but I'm sure you'll like her, Dad. Honestly, I know you will. All right. You don't have to convince me now. I'll go on the date, but I'm also going to try dating Amy from work. Emily's face fell a bit when I mentioned Amy. As far as I knew, Emily had never met Amy, and I wondered if Emily could handle it if my date with Susan didn't go as she hoped. The yacht club was a fancy restaurant and lounge with elegant decor. It was on a dock next to a real yacht club, and you could always see the rich and famous there. The fact that Susan chose this place made me uneasy. I was glad I had just received my salary and bonus. It looked like dinner would cost $400. Arriving at the door a little early, the maitre d' seated me as a guest of Miss Susan Thompson. I hadn't made a reservation, and he seemed pleased to seat me at the table where I would first meet her. The look he gave me as he seated me was skeptical, as if I didn't quite fit. I immediately felt uncomfortable. Dressed in my best suit, I was significantly more upscale than almost all the other men in the establishment, including the waiters. I knew this was going to be a hellish date. I felt it. I sat and hoped that maybe Susan would change her mind or even forget about our date. My hopes for this grew with each passing minute as I waited. I sat there for about 20 minutes when suddenly a stir began in the crowd seated in the restaurant. This woman walked in. I was simply stunned. A gorgeous blonde in a beautiful and quite sexy dress breezed past the maitre d', and every male gaze in the restaurant was fixed on this woman. I could only wonder who the lucky guy she was dining with was. A goddess, a beauty. I hoped I wasn't drooling and that my mouth wasn't hanging open as she slipped into the seat the maitre d' was holding at my table. She was sitting with me. I was shocked. This beautiful creature was my date. Extending my hand quite elegantly, I took hers as she formally introduced herself. Hi, Jim. I'm Susan. It's so nice to finally meet you. You must be Jim. I'm Susan. Sarah has told me so much about you. You are indeed very handsome and just as Sarah described. I hope I'm not late. No, actually, I came a bit early. I hope you, look, you. Sarah said I'd be a wreck. I was flustered and tongue-tied. I didn't know what to say or how to say it. Nothing. So much for politeness and finesse. Desperately, I glanced at the maitre d' for help. He looked at me with a slight twinkle in his eye. Would the gentleman like to order drinks now? I looked at Susan. Really looked. As I felt my tongue tie up again. She was smiling and just sitting there like a cat with a mouse. And that look unnerved me even more. Yes, wine, I think. A glass of wine for the lady and me would be appropriate. Susan? Oh yes, I'll have. Well, Peter, why don't you surprise me? You're always so good at that. Yes, ma'am. I'll bring you today's special. I think you'll like it. Sir? I'll have the special as well, please, Peter. Yes, sir. With pleasure. I looked everywhere but at Susan. She was sitting there as if waiting for me to say something. The problem was I just didn't know what to say or do. My mind was blank. She looked at me, and then suddenly, as if making a decision, she gave me an out. You know, after they bring our wine, we could go somewhere else. I think we'd both be much more comfortable not in this formal attire but in something casual, don't you think? Well, I'm not sure where we could go. God, you're so beautiful. Really, you are. I couldn't help myself. She was beautiful. Almost too beautiful. And rich. That was obvious. She had about $1 billion in diamonds on her fingers and wrists. She was definitely out of my league. I felt like a poor beggar being graced by a royal visit. Oh, any man who thinks I'm beautiful, I love to hear that. Keep going. I want to hear more of your thoughts. Laughing a soft and sensual laugh, she looked at me and I just melted. She was so sweet to me. I was acting like a fool, a big dumb country boy. I knew I was also blushing. Well, you are very beautiful. I imagine every man here tonight thinks you're the most beautiful woman in the place. I'm making a fool of myself. I haven't been on a date in over 15 years, Sarah told me. She pretty much guessed how you'd be tonight. I'm sorry. I kind of set you up. I wanted to meet you in a place familiar to me. And Peter, the maitre d', is a good friend of mine. He was checking you out when you arrived and waited. I apologize for the wait and for, the check. Sarah has been nudging me for some time to go out with you, and I care a lot for your daughter. She's very smart. For some time? How long has she been trying to set us up? Oh, about 1.5 years. At first, I was a bit suspicious. A woman in my position has to be careful. Some people have tried to take advantage of me before, but the more I learned about your daughter, the more I hoped she'd come to work for me after college. She has a great head on her shoulders. I hope she got that from you too. I mean, not to imply. Oh, my wife. I'm over that. It's been a long time. Just never had the time or really the courage to start dating again. Dates scare me. I know what you mean. It's hard to meet a man for the first time, no matter what you've heard about him. I also feel quite guilty. After all, I put you through a check before coming here. Not the best way to start a date, is it? Well, to be honest, I usually don't eat at places like this. Not that this place isn't nice, because it is, but I typically visit mom and pop types. I feel a bit out of place, but this is where the date was set, so we should probably finish it here. I'll tell you what, let's have our wine, then take a walk down the dock. Maybe something will come up that changes our minds. She was trying to ease my nervousness and doing a great job. I was jittery inside and had trouble calming down. Sarah could have given me a heads up. Maybe she did, and I just didn't get it. Susan was very nice, not at all what I imagined a self-made woman to be. Our date turned out to be fun. Susan was very smart, and we talked about various topics. She told me she met Sarah at a school event. Susan was a speaker for Sarah's class, talking about business and the education companies look for. Sarah asked many questions and arranged to meet with her afterward. They stayed in touch ever since, building quite a close relationship. Susan was a very kind person, and I could imagine being with her. I came home with high hopes, my head in the clouds. She was beautiful and interested in me. I walked into the house, and Emily was the only one waiting for me. So, Dad, how did it go? Isn't she as beautiful as I said? And nice too? Yes, she's very beautiful and very nice, Emily. You were right about her. She's someone I'd like to get to know better. Emily pumped her fist in the air with enthusiasm. Yes, Emily, this isn't a competition or something. I don't think you should act like, well, like you won a contest. But I was right, Dad. You two really hit it off. You like her. That's a big win for me. It means a lot to me. Watching her pump her fist was amusing enough that I let her celebrate. I felt a bit awkward realizing that I was the reason, or rather my date was the reason for her celebration. Did you kiss her? Did she kiss you? No, we didn't kiss. It was just a first date, you know. Oh, no kisses? Darn. You sound disappointed, Emily. It was just our first date. Sometimes people don't kiss on first dates, you know. I was hoping you'd kiss. Let's put it this way. I really want to ask her out again. In fact, I arranged a picnic date with her for next Sunday. I also told her I was dating Amy, or planning to go out with her at least once. She seemed okay with it. She said she appreciated my honesty. Oh, darn, Dad. You shouldn't have told her that. Besides, if you like Susan as much as you say, why not cancel the date with Amy and plan something with Susan? Well, Emily, I'm not in a hurry to start dating someone seriously. It might take a long time, and I might go through many women in the process. I want to be sure as I can be, that the next person I ask to marry me, if it comes to that, is someone I can. I lost my train of thought, reminded of my ex. I felt the pain, softer now but still there. Trust, Dad, someone you can trust, unlike Mom. Yes. I fell silent. I spoke so softly that I barely heard myself. Emily came over and hugged me tightly. I felt hot tears on my cheeks. You'd think that after a few years, I'd have gotten over my ex-wife's betrayal. Apparently, I still had some issues. When we parted, I saw that Emily was crying too. It eased my inner feeling a bit, knowing my pain wasn't alone. I hated that I had this pain, and I hated that my kids were suffering from it along with me. At the same time, it felt good knowing my kids loved me despite everything that had happened. I'm sorry, Dad. I guess I forgot how much Mom's betrayal hurt you. I thought you were over it by now. Maybe not. Don't apologize, Emily. You've done a lot to help me get through it. You and your brother and sister, too. It's time to move on. Obviously, your mother has long since done so. Over the next few months, I continued to date either Susan or Amy. My relationship with Amy grew very intense, which I hadn't expected. However, with Susan, we progressed slowly. She set the pace she felt was best for her, and I was willing to follow. One evening, on my fourth date with Amy, we were kissing goodbye at her door, and it was getting hotter. Soon she invited me inside. We'd done this before, so I didn't expect more than passionate kisses and then going home, which I had grown accustomed to. I was extremely aroused, but also unsure if I was ready for an intimate relationship with another woman. On our last date, Amy kissed me, and before I could react, she stopped. I think she was scared too, or at least that's how it seemed to me then. Anyway, we went inside and continued kissing. Amy said she wanted to feel a bit more comfortable, so she went to her bedroom. I sat on the couch in her living room, patiently waiting for her to return so we could continue our embrace. Part of the reason I loved kissing Amy was that it reminded me of my college days, probably making me feel much younger than I really was. Another part was that she was amazing at kissing. When Amy came out of her bedroom, my back was to her. I didn't see her until she walked around the couch and sat on my lap. I was stunned, to say the least. She had taken off all her clothes. She kissed me, wrapping her arms around my neck and holding me tightly. We began making love. Oh, wait. I'm not wearing a condom. Do you have any diseases, Jim? No. But the responsible thing for you would be to satisfy the person you got all worked up. I'm clean, you're clean. I'm also on birth control, Jim, so don't worry about pregnancy. If I thought you had a disease, I would never have let you get this far. How did you know I was clean, Amy? I haven't been tested for over a year, and you wouldn't have access to my test results. Jim, don't you remember when the doctor's office called work and told you that you were clean? I remember because you accidentally hit the conference button on your phone, and that information was broadcast before you could shut it off. That was last year, and I know you've only been with me since then. Well, there's another woman, but I know you haven't had sexual relations with her. How do you know that, Amy? Sarah told me. Sarah? Yes. She mentioned she wished you and Susan would, is that right? Anyway, she said she wanted you and Susan to take your relationship to the next level. I asked her what she meant by that, and she then said that you two hadn't had sexual relations yet. That's when I realized I had to make an effort to seduce you before she did. But I don't understand. I've always wanted to have you, Jim. Finally, I had you where we could have sex, and then everything started going wrong. Of course, I insisted. I had to. I wanted to have you at least once, just once, even if we didn't make it long term. I had to have you at least once. Now I hope you'll want to spend some more special time with me. Okay, but what if we don't make it, Amy? Oh, Jim, dear. I never wanted a relationship with you that would end in marriage. I just wanted to have a good sexual relationship for a while to enjoy until I met Mr. Right. So I take it I'm not Mr. Right. Dear, you're the best man I've ever had. You're also a great kisser. But we're just friends with benefits, that's all. If you've found someone you love and want to spend your life with, by all means, go for it. I won't be hurt. I'll miss you, yes, but I won't be hurt. Amy, I don't know what to say. You're beautiful and mean a lot to me. You love me, right? Well, no. Not in the way of wanting to spend my life with you, but as a friend. Oh my. I was afraid you were in love with me for a moment. We're just friends with benefits. And that's it. If you and Susan have a chance to be happy together as a couple, then you should stop with me and focus on her. She's a real catch, dear. I can see it in your eyes. Is it that obvious? Oh dear. I hope to find someone like you someday, both as a lover and a husband. I might be making a huge mistake in my life by not wanting you as a husband, but I also know you don't feel for me the way you do for Susan. But it's okay. It'll be okay. We'll be okay. Susan is the one who has your heart, and you need to devote yourself to her now. You'll be okay? I feel like a jerk for this. Don't. For us, it was just sexual pleasure. Susan is the real deal. Go after her. That night, we parted with a bittersweet kiss. Amy was truly a wonderful person, and I would never forget her. She was serious about our relationship being just friends with benefits, and I worried she might decide she wanted more from me. I was glad and grateful she didn't. Now I was free, or at least felt free, to fully pursue Susan. It's been 2 years since that fateful night. Amy and I still work well together. In fact, I got promoted, and in the process, I promoted Amy too, as she truly deserves these promotions. Even if we hadn't had a sexual relationship, I would still have recommended her for these promotions. She's very smart and excellent at her job. Amy met a man she seems to love, and they are planning a wedding. She told me she wants me to walk her down the aisle since her father passed away long ago. I agreed. She looks very happy, and I can only hope her marriage is everything she dreams of. Susan and I, well, we got married 1.5 years ago. Emily and Katie were bridesmaids, and Max was my best man. Susan is everything I ever wanted in a wife. I'm happy I fell in love with her, And even happier, she fell in love with me. Emily is in college and doing well. She's pursuing an MBA. Max is about to graduate and is also preparing for college. Katie is in high school, and I can see she's a lot like her older sister in many ways. Susan and the kids get along great, and they are all very close. I couldn't hope or pray for a better ending to this story. My ex? It seems my wish came true. She became the local tramp and picked up even more STDs. My daughter told me she was hospitalized due to complications from one of the infections. I laughed when I heard that, and my daughter did too. My ex will be dead soon. Good riddance. High five. I've got to go. My wife Susan is calling me. Looks like we have a date at the yacht club tonight. Emily and her boyfriend will also be there for dinner. It seems like it's going to be a serious dinner. Knowing Emily, maybe someone's about to ask a question or ask for permission to ask a question. He seems like a nice young man. I hope they can wait until after college to get married. But if they're truly in love, I guess it doesn't matter when they marry, as long as they're happy. Thank you for listening to this heartbreaking story of betrayal and redemption. After 12 years of marriage, Jim's world turned upside down when he discovered his wife Jenny's infidelity, leaving him with a shocking diagnosis. After going through heartbreak and rebuilding his life, Jim found new love and happiness. What would you do if you were in Jim's place? Share your thoughts in the comments below and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more real stories.